One wonders where one can go with negotiations with terrorists who have no value, it seems, for their own lives.
Well, yes, indeed. Facing such terror, one question could be, is there any room left for any sort of negotiation? And here the spontaneous answer, of course, is no. There is some sort of, moral refusal to engage in any sort of talk with Daesh, Al-Qaeda, or even Boko Haram in Nigeria, given the repulsiveness of the acts perpetrated not only last week here in Paris, but on a daily basis in the Middle East.
Indeed, some of the images that we see and we don't show because of common decency show exactly the kind of atrocities that get committed on a daily basis in Syria by supporters of the Islamic State group. So is it a question then, Aurélien, of trying to find a different way of getting into that negotiation, a different way around the problem?
No, the thing is that beyond this sort of spontaneous moral refusal, I very strongly believe that there is no room for any negotiation.
Seriously?
For analytical reasons, we need to look at this in a cold-blooded way. Any negotiation will take place only if a number of conditions are met. In that situation here, none of these conditions are met. First of all, there is what I would call a strategic refusal on both sides. On the coalition side, the Western coalition side, engaging into some sort of negotiation would acknowledge that we're not sure we're going to achieve our goal, which is to destroy these entities. And similarly, on the other side, why would Daesh engage into any sort of negotiation? Through unilateral means, they're achieving their goals, which is to control an area in the Middle East and to generate fear. They don't see the point of engaging into any sort of negotiation.
The US, Russia, France talking about perhaps coming together, creating a broader coalition against the enemy identified by Manuel Valls today as radical Islam. What effect can that have, given what you've just said?
They will not engage into any sort of negotiation because precisely at the moment the goal is to try and destroy those entities. You're going to engage into a negotiation only if you realize that there's no way you're going to achieve your goal through unilateral manners. And at the moment, the point is, no, we're going to engage and by unilateral means try and destroy those entities. And even though the point is, for any negotiation to take place, there must be some sort of zone of possible agreements. And there's no zone of possible agreements, a sort of a zone where all the constraints of all the parties could have some sort of compromise. It doesn't exist, because on the side of Daesh or Al-Qaeda, there is a suicidal refusal to negotiate. They're not engaging into those acts in order to prompt negotiation. What happened in Saint-Denis this morning was not a negotiation. They're determined to go unto the very end, including self-destruction. And on the other side, on the Western side, there is a value-based refusal. We consider that a number of things are non-negotiable. Freedom of the press is non-negotiable.
So in terms of what happens next, one wonders whether there is suddenly a role for Bashar al-Assad to play. Could he play a part in somehow bringing about the fall of Islamic State if somehow he is brought back? And I know everybody on the Western side would say this is impossible and it must not happen. France says that, the US says that, everybody says that. Russia, of course, different. But are we in a position now where maybe there has to be a reassessment of the role of Assad?
Here, even though Assad would like to come back into the game and do something, in terms of negotiation, you need interlocutors for negotiation to take place. And here, the sort of terrorist entities we're dealing with are very different from those we had in the 80s, like ETA, for instance, or the Irish Republican Army, which were some sort of bureaucratic terrorist organizations with the top leaders controlling the base, the rank and files. For Boko Haram, that's not the case. We have some sort of loosely networks of groups with changing loyalties, and even though part of Al-Qaeda or Daesh would like to engage into some sort of talk, I'm sure that other parts of this sort of series of groups would refuse those negotiations and will still continue this sort of suicidal strategy, which leaves no room whatsoever for proper negotiation.
Aurélien Coulson of the ESSEC Business School, we will leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.